concepts, but also these fundamental questions about human identity.
Exactly. It's the entire source material for this deep dive. It forces us to think way, way into the future.
Yeah, it's almost like philosophical engineering. We have to define these theoretical terms and then grapple with the human consequences of, I guess, our own success.
Right. This isn't about how the future works. It's about why we should still care when we get there.
Hmm.
So our mission is to unpack every single interwoven concept in this statement. It's attributed to Muhammad Raj Abdullah, and it presents a core, really an existential challenge to you.
Let's get into it.
Okay, here it is. The quote is, "Finding meaning when economic singularity is achieved will be very challenging for especially the non-Muslims."
Just 14 words. It's a staggering amount of information to pack in there.
It really is.
What's so fascinating is how it combines this massive technological prediction, the economic singularity,
Right.
with universal human
Yeah.
crisis,
Hmm.
finding meaning, and then it has this really specific cultural and religious differential.
It's like a whole thesis statement in one sentence.
It is. It demands that we look at each moving part one by one.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with that foundation he lays out, the economic singularity. Now, usually when people say singularity, they're talking about AI, general AI becoming smarter than us. But in this context, how do we have to define an economic singularity?
Well, based on the context of the warning, we have to assume it's a point where the traditional drivers of our economy just cease to be the main thing.
So human labor, the need to work for a living.
Exactly. The necessity of human effort to survive, to get ahead, it becomes a secondary concern, maybe not even that. We're talking about an economy where production, distribution, even creative or cognitive services,
All automated.
almost entirely,
Yeah.
human labor just becomes functionally irrelevant for basic well-being.
So this is way beyond just robots in a factory. This is the systemic retirement of human utility in the marketplace.
That's a great way to put it. We're moving from an economy that is built on scarcity and what you and I can do
Right, our input.
to one that's just characterized by near total abundance and, automated output.
And that word he uses, achieved, is so important.
It's crucial. He's not framing this as some kind of collapse, a disaster. It's presented as a success,
A triumph.
a qualitative leap forward, a post-scarcity world where basic needs are met, maybe even most wants, without anyone having to do traditional work for it. The whole problem of work just kind of disappears.
And that achievement, this amazing technological win, is precisely where Abdullah says the real trouble starts. If your effort is no longer linked to your survival, what on earth happens to your purpose?
Well, historically, the economic system has done a lot of the heavy lifting for our sense of self. Just having to work, to apply effort to get food or shelter, or even just status. That's been a huge built-in source of daily meaning. It gives you a routine. It gives you an identity.
It defines your day. It defines your contribution.
And when the economic singularity is achieved, that entire foundational mechanism just dissolves.
It's the ultimate removal of constraints, isn't it? If your whole day is no longer defined by the 9 to 5 or 8 to 5,
Right.
and your value isn't measured by some productivity metric,
Yeah.
what is the anchor that stops you from just drifting existentially? We've spent centuries optimizing the economy, but have we spent any time optimizing the human spirit for that kind of freedom?
That is the core tension right there. The shift is from defining yourself by what you do
In the market.
in the material market to defining yourself by what you fundamentally are. And that is a huge, maybe even an overwhelming challenge for a global culture that has, for centuries, really internalized this idea that your utility is your worth.
Which brings us right to the second piece of the statement, the universal part. Finding meaning will be very challenging.
Very challenging.
He assumes this crisis of purpose is just a given, a universal human reaction. Why? Why does the end of the economic system automatically mean an existential crisis? Couldn't we just, pivot into art or science?
That's a good question. And I think it gets to what the author is implying about our current motivations.
Okay.
The crisis happens because so much of our identity, our status, our sense of contributing, it's all derived from participating in that economic structure. For most people, your job isn't just how you make money.
No, it's the answer to who are you or what do you do?
Exactly. Your title is your status. Your profession is your identity. Your paycheck, your portfolio, that's your worth. We literally use the language of the market to define our own internal value.
And he's saying that entire structure, the thing that gives life its routine, its goals, its value, just becomes irrelevant.
It dissolves. And we have this really powerful culturally ingrained system that equates effort and economic participation with being a good person, with morality. When that's gone, we're left without any kind of mass-scale, culturally accepted replacement for purpose.
It's like, imagine spending your whole life building this incredibly complex, beautiful watch,
Right.
perfecting every gear, and then you realize that the process of building it was the whole point of your existence. Once it runs perfectly by itself, you're just left hoarding it thinking, now what do I do with my hands?
That's a perfect analogy. The question of why you're doing something suddenly becomes much, much bigger than how to make a living.
The crisis is guaranteed because purpose is no longer handed to you from the outside.
By necessity, right?
It has to be generated from the inside.
Yeah.
And that's much harder work. It's work our modern economies don't really train us for. We're optimized for productivity, not introspection.
Not at all.
Okay, so that brings us to the most specific and I think the most charged part of the sentence. He doesn't just say it will be hard for everyone. He singles out especially the non-Muslims.
Yeah.
This is where we have to be extremely careful and impartial in our analysis. Why draw this distinction? What is the structural critique that's embedded in that phrase?
Right, and here we have to shift from economics to,
Yeah.
well, to analyzing worldviews.
Right.
And we have to be very clear, we're reporting on the author's implied framework, not making broad generalizations.
Of course.
The core assertion is that certain frameworks, and he is implicitly pointing to the Muslim framework, are structurally more robust. They're more resilient against this post-singularity crisis.
Because they provide a source of purpose that is totally independent of the material or economic world.
Exactly. The meaning structure is decoupled from GDP from the very beginning. He's suggesting that systems rooted in, say, a spiritual duty or a direct relationship with the divine provide a purpose that is, well, it's non-contingent.
So it doesn't matter what the stock market is doing.
It doesn't matter at all. If your primary purpose is defined by devotion, by ethics, by spiritual study, acts of charity, things that have immense value inside that framework, but zero material exchange value,
Right.
then the collapse of the material exchange system doesn't touch your life's purpose. It doesn't invalidate your identity.
So in a way, the framework is technologically resilient because it was designed in a pre-capitalist, pre-industrial age. Its value system is just on a completely different ledger.
It's structurally resilient.
Yeah.
And he's contrasting that with what he implies about the non-Muslim context. And we should probably interpret that as a critique of the dominant global frameworks, secular, individualist, consumerist.
Okay, let's dig into that implied critique. What does he suggest makes those frameworks so vulnerable?
From Abdullah's viewpoint, the implication is that for many people around the world, the systems for making meaning have become anchored to, well, to accumulation.
Things. Buying things.
Buying things, consumption, and this idea of meritocracy, the belief that your worth is earned through your job, through climbing the career ladder.
So when automation kicks that ladder out from under you.
The entire identity system collapses. The moment the economy no longer needs your effort, your self-worth, which was built on that effort, it evaporates.
You find yourself without a role in the only drama you were ever taught.
Yes, and it completely shifts who is vulnerable. In this future, it's not the poor who are most at risk existentially. It's those who built their entire identity on their career or on their ability to purchase and consume. Their whole purpose is fragile because it depends on the economic structure staying at the center of life.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. The statement suggests that the true dividing line in a post-scarcity world isn't going to be rich versus poor or what country you live in.
No.
It's going to be based on worldview resilience. How robust is your personal source of purpose against technological disruption?
That's a profound thought because the technological problem, we'll probably solve that. We'll figure out how to feed and house everyone with robots and AI. The challenge that's left is the human software problem.
Rebooting our purpose.
How do you reboot a sense of purpose on a global scale when the primary engine of modern meaning, work, and consumption just shuts down?
And we should, again, just recenter and remember, this is the specific perspective of Muhammad Raj Abdullah. It's a very particular assertion about spiritual purpose versus economic utility.
Absolutely. The statement is really two things at once. It's a warning to anyone whose meaning is purely secular or economic.
A huge warning.
But it's also an assertion of the value of a specific non-material source of purpose that can withstand this incredible technological change. He's suggesting that technology can disrupt the material world to the point of irrelevance, but it can't touch a purpose that is internally and spiritually mandated.
So after this deep dive into just one powerful sentence, what does this all mean for us today, right now, as we're seeing the first stages of this automation accelerate?
I think the quote forces us to take a really honest look at where our own sources of meaning come from. Ask yourself, is my meaning tied completely to my job title, to my salary, to the stuff I can buy?
Or is it rooted in something deeper, something non-contingent?
Right. The real work of preparing for an economic singularity isn't about tech or policy. It's a fundamental existential challenge that we each need to start addressing internally right now.
Abdullah is basically saying we need to start building a future where our purpose isn't derived from scarcity, but from abundance. And that maybe the most resilient structures for that purpose are ancient ones. So if the quote is right, and one day economic activity just stops being the source of your daily purpose,
Right.
what system are you relying on? Spiritual, philosophical, community-based? What do you have right now that is robust enough to fill that void? What foundational purpose in your life today is non-economic?
That's the structure you need to be reinforcing.
A vital piece of knowledge to carry forward into what's coming.
Indeed.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of meaning and the future of purpose. We'll see you next time.